Hey,
Hey,
welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out. My name's Robert Winters,
and I'm Judy Nathans.
and today is January 17th,
3 days left.
2017.
2.5 of Obama. What is it?
Yeah, we got.
When does he officially leave? 10 a.m. that morning?
I think when the other guy raises his hand and says the word, so that there's a continuous transition one to the other.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Anyway, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
To see. Actually, just in preparing and thinking through things about presidential elections, whatever, I actually, not that I have a whole lot to say about it, but just an hour ago I was actually doing a little bit of the statistics. On
that's new. Yeah, I didn't see that this morning. Oh,
just
good.
on the people who voted.
Ooh.
I feel so much just like go to that thing.
Before you do, let me just get it more,
So one of the things I've done in the past is I'll just run a few statistical things on registered voters, number of registered voters, and then the percentage of people who voted by age group.
Okay.
Right? And just sort of because I found it kind of interesting. Nothing spectacular. I was looking for something like I was going to explain the meaning of life or something. I found nothing of particular interest.
All right, go ahead.
But I'm going to kind of show a little bit of this image here.
This is the first graph.
Yeah. Basically all it shows here is the by age group. It's kind of hard to read down there, but at the bottom axis.
I can go a little bigger if I can.
Well, this is all right. Yeah.
All right.
The horizontal axis just shows people 18 to 20, 21 to 23,
down here.
et cetera, et cetera, et
This
cetera.
is age. Okay.
Yeah. So you get older as you move to the right there, and
wow,
then,
we have an older population here.
Yeah. Well,
Baby boomers.
Well, anyway, what the graph indicates
Yeah.
is just the percentage of people within each age group who voted.
So this is the percent up here?
Yeah, what I was actually looking, quite honestly, is to see whether there was going to be any like big drop off in the number of people who voted of the very young. And honestly, I don't think I saw it.
Wow, 70% of people 18 to 20?
Yeah, but if you look, it's actually almost 90% of the people up around 65 to 70. To 80.
Oh, that are registered.
Yeah, nearly 90% voter turnout in those age groups.
Oh, okay, I get you now. I didn't realize.
I think the overall
look at that.
percent turnout.
I'm right there. Yeah, that's me.
It's like 70 some odd percent. So,
unbelievable.
But up there, it was really, really up there.
Yeah.
Actually, if you scroll down a little bit more, you see if you look at that general shape.
You're talking about this one here?
You'll see it looks almost identical. That was from it's a little flatter up in the middle ages perhaps there, but basically it shows a similar profile to what happened in the March primary. I didn't put any label on it or something like that.
Okay, so this was the primary and the similar in terms of the
I mean the overall percent turnout was lower for the primary in March, but the general...
Yeah, that's interesting, especially with the younger.
The distribution by age is still relatively the same.
That's about the same. Oh, but it was 70, not... That's interesting that the primary didn't bring out 90%.
Primaries don't,
But this was an important one, no?
I know, but presidential primaries, there are a lot of people who only vote in November.
Do you have the Trump vote in Cambridge?
I have it. It was like one of the lowest anywhere.
Really?
Yeah, it was like...
But I'm just wondering if it counted to go from
like
70% in the primary to 90% of that age group. That I think is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, what I was looking for this afternoon when I was playing with the numbers was just to see if there was going to be a noticeable drop off in the like 20 to 30 range. The people who would be what we would call the disappointed Bernie voters. So they came out full charge for the primary, but then come the general election, they were turned off, so they didn't show up.
No, there was more of them actually voted.
Well, it was
similar. 70% versus 50.
Well, no. I mean, overall percentage, but just in terms of how it compares to the other age groups. And honestly, it followed more or less the way all age groups. So in other words, it was completely underwhelming information.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, as they say in the world of statistics, sometimes a non-result is a result.
I don't know. I still think that's it's over 70% that voted in the presidential versus over 50 in the primary. Because you could register. Some people did not register for the primary, were able to register for presidential, right?
Right. There was definitely a bump up.
I think there were more registrations.
Yeah, and it's certainly true that if somebody's going to register in advance of the presidential election, then they are almost certainly going to be voting in it.
Right. So I just think that the stakes were high and people went out and registered.
Yeah. So anyway, just a nice piece of non-information there.
Well.
We have a few things maybe worth mentioning. I think I'm going to go click over that thing on the
What?
City Managers Advisory Committee. So
Okay.
one of the things when they were, this past year, when they were interviewing the candidates and, doing the dog and pony show, the candidates to be new city manager, I think it was Jay Ash
Yes.
from Chelsea
Right.
mentioned that when he was city manager at Chelsea, he formed an advisory
Right.
group and he sort of met with these advisors with some regularity. We never had anything like that in Cambridge.
Right.
So apparently Louis DePasquale, who got
liked
the
the
job,
idea.
he seemed to like the idea. And so there was a press release came out this past week.
Right.
Pretty much saying, members sought for the new city managers advisory committee. I'll just sort of cut to the chase. I mean, it is what it is. They were looking
12 to
about
15 residents and meet at least quarterly, so maybe
at
more.
least quarterly,
Yeah.
could be more. But anyway, if it's something that floats your boat, if something
Yeah.
that's of any interest at all to you, you might want to apply by Friday, February 17th.
Yeah, quite a lot of time.
Right. The one thing, without getting into the minutia, they said, we want to make sure we have representation of boop, 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 boop. It's all by groups.
Yep.
Just to be perfectly honest, I'm not a person who thinks by groups.
Yeah.
I just want to have a good cross-section of just people in the city.
Yeah.
And, so in other
Business
words,
owners maybe,
yeah.
right?
So don't be dissuaded necessarily by the description that we want people from this group, that group. If you're just some schmo who, lives on
residents and
Aberdeen
stakeholders in the
Ave and you
community,
live
yeah.
there a long time, you just, you don't have to be representative of anyone but yourself, really.
Right.
If it's something that's
I think
interesting.
the longer
come
term
on.
resident you are, that's already a good,
Yeah, though actually, the number of long-term residents in the city is not the highest number. I think
Really?
they tend to be reflected strongly in municipal elections, right? So when we get 15, 16,000 people voting in a municipal election as opposed to, 50,000 voting in another election,
it's generally the older
it tends to
people.
be
Yeah.
people who sort of understand municipal government a little
Right.
bit,
Sure.
know who the mayor might be and
And it's understand PR, yeah.
well, actually,
That's
not
the bigger-
everybody does, but
No, but I think it's a bigger issue.
well, at least they're not totally horrified
Right,
by it.
right,
So that's
right.
okay. By the way, that is something I still promise one of these days
Yeah,
we'll
we're
have to
gonna do a show on,
we'll
well,
do a-
as the election,
Yeah, I mean, we got a whole, this is municipal election year, we
Yeah.
don't need to rush or anything like that, but at some point, and I certainly would appreciate questions from people if people would like to see something shown in greater detail. Because I can see, very easy to describe the way the election mechanics work, just in terms of the idea of it all. But we can also, bring in the computer and actually run an election here.
well, you
And,
keep saying that.
Yeah,
but
gonna do it, we'll
We
get to
might
it.
have to do it though, not write it live, do it, that's what
Yeah,
we
we'll
talked
probably
about.
do,
We'll
maybe
do it.
have to do it so just in case
And
the
if it's so
computer
good, we
goes
will
on fritz.
repeat at least once a month, so you don't have to see us all the time.
Yeah,
Or you'll see us differently.
yeah, but anyway, it's something, it's relatively easy to do, and there's a lot of good graphics that we can put together to make the case, so, it's on the wish list here,
Okay,
right? In terms of public meetings, this is actually, for me, this is actually kind of a big week.
that's interesting, because there's no city council meeting.
There was no city council meeting yesterday, it was Martin Luther King Day.
Right,
And there was a lot of people showed up at City Hall and
Helping
over
Hands.
at this many helping hands. I have to say I have kind of a point of view about these sort of one day off events.
yeah, I do too.
I was one of the organizers of the original Cambridge Earth Day back around 1990,
Oh, my.
which was really marking the 20th anniversary of the original Earth Day.
1970?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it goes back to 1970. So, but in 1990, 91, 92, I was involved in a somewhat, not as much as some others, but very much involved in putting together the Earth Day events for Cambridge. And it was a friend of mine somewhere along the line says, I don't believe in Earth Day. Why don't you believe in Earth Day? Because basically it's one day where everybody sort of shows up and sort of pretends to be really interested in something, and then a day later they forget about it, right? And I thought, oh, don't be such a schmo, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of agreed with that.
It's like people volunteering at Thanksgiving at food shelters and stuff, yeah.
So anyway, so I wasn't going to be part of the whole many helping hands thing so much, but I tell you what I did do actually, since I am actually part of a volunteer organization called the Middlesex Canal Association. I spent Monday putting together the whole mailing of our newsletter.
Oh, nice.
For a nonprofit organization. So there.
Right, good for you.
I've done my good deed for the week here. and mailed it all out there, 160 pieces. So anyway, that was pretty cool. But one thing, before getting into some of the meetings this week, which actually I'd like to get into some of the details. Last week, I'm trying to remember the day now, but there was an economic development subcommittee.
Thursday, I didn't go. The 12th.
Yeah, it was an economic development and university relations committee. Councilor Devereaux was the chair.
Right.
And this was, something maybe we probably spend too much time talking about the silliness of
boards?
people getting all worked up about sandwich boards and A-frame signs or signage in general, right? So I actually went to that meeting, and and it was interesting. There was lots of staff and city council aides and city councilors, and
So a lot of people there?
a lot of people there. And
What did I do? All right, get rid of. All right, sorry.
Yeah, it's actually the thing below.
Okay.
I would just so you know what that sound was.
Well, it was all in the same number. That's why.
Whenever we have all these characters that come out and they get very worked up about how we have to preserve Harvard Square, we have to preserve this, change nothing. Whenever I do that, I always think of that song by the Kinks, which is what you just heard coming up there, called the Village Green Preservation Society.
Okay, that's what that. So it's part of that. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I just was in there.
All right.
If anybody was poking around on our little materials supplement here, they would get a kick out of it.
All right.
But anyway, there's some people, not that many actually, but they're very, very vocal. I'm not going to name the names here, but they come out, city council meetings, and they get very worked up about...
the public comment part?
Yeah, so they get very worked up. But even the agenda itself is driven by certain individuals in the public who are really, really making a case out of signage, whether it's these sandwich board signs you see in front of signs. Remember, I got a little annoyed, but there was a request to put out some hardware in front of Pill Hardware. And they said, oh, absolutely, we cannot allow it. It's much too...
And then you showed a photo from 1930 or something.
Hardware stores putting wares out in front of hardware stores since the beginning of time, right? But somehow it had become this horrible, horrible thing. So anyway, I went to this meeting not because I have any particularly strong interest in it, but because I just wanted to sort of speak my mind about the silliness
So you
of
did?
it all. Oh, I did. Oh, absolutely did. So there were some aspects of this pretty good. Like, for example, if someone comes up, a merchant wants to put out a sign on a sidewalk that's just a few feet wide and they're blocking the public way.
That shouldn't be allowed.
That shouldn't be allowed, right? Obvious, right? Some of these things are pretty obvious. But, people were actually getting worked up because they had a sandwich board sign on a sidewalk that's like 15 feet wide. Right? And I said, well, don't put it smack in the middle of where people are walking, but so what if there's a sign? Big deal, right?
Yeah.
Apparently most of the city councilors do like the one that's in front of Central Square Florist that says things like, if your name is Judy, come in and get a free rose.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every day they put another name on there.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You saw Judy?
No, I didn't see Judy, but the thing is, we can go tell David Levine to go, hey, put Judy on tomorrow. We'll get a flower for Judy, right? But anyway, so I went there because I had to speak to the silliness of it all.
Yeah.
Right. So I won't go into every little aspect about this here, but I did point out that as opposed to people who get all worked up over the fact that there's a little sandwich board sign, I said I actually like urban clutter. When I try to make a distinction between them, and I said that's not the same as just a degraded garbage stuff. Right. And I even pointed out that I had actually spent the day going down to MIT, removing all the old posters off the poles, and then on the way home, removing them on the other side of the street. Right? Yeah. I don't like them. Right? To me, it makes the city look shabby. Yeah. Right? But if you see signage in the windows or signs hanging over the front of the stores, whatever, as long as it fits in reasonably well, I think it kind of makes for an interesting looking urban setting. Yeah. And I kind of tried to make that point there. I basically made the point that I think to me a great urban center is one where you see people selling clothes on racks out on the sidewalk, like a Canal Street in New York. Yeah, they do
that in places.
Stuff in front of sidewalks. Sidewalk cafes, actually, in a way, that's a form of urban clutter. Nobody wants to put them back into the restaurant.
But they have to get special permits for those.
Well, they have to do it for all these things, sure.
Well, why is it even coming before the city council?
Because there are certain individuals who get really worked up about
but why is it even within their jurisdiction?
Well, there's certain things that naturally are, unless somebody says otherwise, it is still subject to the local legislative body to regulate. Now, the city council can and has, in many, many respects, farmed some of those tasks out to entities like the License Commission.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you want to get a liquor license, you don't come to the city council. The city council
hope
gave
not.
that.
Yeah.
Well, once upon a time, you did.
Well, that's good. That
Right?
shouldn't be political.
Yeah. So, so that got farmed out
All right.
to the License Commission, and then they adjudicate it. Certain things like curb cuts, they still have to get approval by the city council, but that's kind of ridiculous.
Well, to me, curb cuts and sandwich boards are sort of similar, but
Right, and I personally, and I think actually the consensus at the meeting, if I might be so
Yeah.
forward as to suggest it, was that most of the city councilors actually sort of like the idea of setting the regulations.
they do.
Or you sort of advice, saying this is what we expect,
Oh,
but then
but then-
giving the authority to either
Oh.
Public Works or another city
So
agency.
that was sort of a result of this meeting?
No, they didn't vote that yet,
Oh.
so, but it may come down to that.
That would be great. I would
Yeah.
support that.
That's really what I think should happen, but city council should still set some standards.
Right,
Sort of
but
like,
then they could always intervene if they see something egregious happening, but that shouldn't really be what they're wasting their time on.
it really shouldn't be, yeah. But I think, honestly, to be perfectly honest, I think this is citizen-driven by a few individuals.
Well, then have them go to
Yeah.
the
I mean,
advisory committee
there's
for
one-
Louis D. Pasquale. That would
There's
be a
one
good place.
person where no matter what sign appears on
Yeah.
what building
They're gonna-
anywhere, will show
they are
up,
gonna
will
show up.
write letters to the city council,
Okay.
will show up at meetings, will testify, whatever, because like
So what?
signage is the end
So
of the
then,
day.
all right, let's say it was out of the purview of the city council. Would they then send letters to whatever body is legislating
They
them?
could do that.
So then let them do
Sure,
that.
let them do that. But the
Good.
thing is, if you set the standards, then it should be okay. It's kind of, I always think it's a
Yeah.
little bit analogous to the way it
Yeah.
works in zoning, where
Right.
the city council sets a policy that says you can build certain things via special permit. And here are the criteria, and if you meet the criteria, the planning board will grant you your special
Right.
permit. But it doesn't have to come back to the city council anymore.
Right.
Right? So the city council can lay out certain guidelines to say this is what we
Yes.
expect, and then
Yeah.
let things happen.
Okay.
All right, but anyway, I sort of spoke up in favor of urban clutter.
That went over big.
I think with some folks who they are, I think they completely understood it.
Yeah.
But there is this a little bit of this sort of snooty way of looking at the city too.
Were there any public people from businesses that want these boards speaking?
I think so. Yes. Yeah, I think there was one such person. Yeah. Anyway, it was kind of an interesting thing. Otherwise, a relatively slow week. Now, this week, on the other hand, is actually kind of interesting for some of us. I believe tonight, the planning board meeting starts at 7, but I believe it's an 8 o'clock hearing. Focuses on. It's actually a joint meeting of the planning board and the Cambridge Redevelopment Authority.
Oh,
That doesn't happen very often.
what are they discussing?
I think it's about a pretty major infill development that's happening in Kendall Square. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not going to, rather than get it wrong, I'm not going to, I'll just sort of hold back on it. But they actually want to demolish a few buildings on one portion, not like downtown Kendall Square, but a little more on the periphery, I believe, and build other buildings. And along with some housing and whatnot. So anyway, it's a pretty significant one. So if somebody has an interest in some of what the redevelopment authority is doing around Kendall Square, you might want to come to that. That's tonight. But for me, I've sort of made a decision that I was going to put some of my mental energies as a citizen into this Envision Cambridge process.
Is that happening this week?
Yeah, and I think some people have complained that the progress with this master plan Envision Cambridge thing is sort of glacial.
So, yeah.
And I think that's fair criticism. But at
3 years.
the last meeting of the Envision Cambridge advisory group, which I am on, several of us sort of piped up and said, well, we don't want to just come to meetings here and just say a few things and go home. Put us to work. We want to actually do something. So they promised to do that. And so we're meeting tomorrow night.
Give me an example of what they would have you do.
The way I understand it right now, they advertise to get people to join these various working groups.
Right.
Some working groups were set up initially. Like there was an outreach group. There was an alewife specific
Right.
working group. And then they come up with recommendations, sort of, they work it out with staff, with the consultants, and then they're going to funnel some of that through the advisory group. Again, we are an advisory group. We don't decide, we just advise, right? So none of I don't think anybody that's on the advisory group somehow thinks we're going to somehow shape this.
No votes, no power, really.
Well, I mean, we could vote on things, but the thing is ultimately, it's just footnotes in a report, ultimately, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, the first example of this sort of funneling through us is actually going to be happening tomorrow. I don't think it'll end there, but...
So funneling through of these other groups to you.
Yeah, so the upfront committee that was really working was the one having to do with the alewife issues. Now, I can't say that they've resolved things. They're still meeting. Yeah. But they did make some presentations, so they're actually going to be passing some of the work product and some of the ideas and concepts that were floated by that group in front of us. Tomorrow, which will be interesting.
So you're going to that?
Yeah, that's the one thing that to me is sort of a no compromise. I always go. I will always go to the Envision Cambridge Advisory Committee meeting. So that's happening. I think is it 6 o'clock?
Wednesday, 6 o'clock.
Actually,
yeah,
sort of do
right
this
there.
Here.
Yeah.
So we have 6 to 8. There's the alewife working group presentation. There's some reports and some recommendations having to do with mobility. So it's a new word for transportation, I guess.
Right.
Climate change. So there are actually some excerpts from the climate change vulnerability assessment that took place over the last couple of years. And there's a little image here on Cambridge development projects. Actually, why don't you click on that just to sort of give a little bit of this.
Let's see if we can get that
so what this is showing here is just major development projects happening in Cambridge between 2010 and well, until recently, till 2016. The dark blue are ones I think that have actually been constructed, or excuse me, the blue ones have been constructed. The red ones I think are permitted but not yet constructed. And maps like this are kind of interesting because you can get a bit of a sense about where the development in the city is actually happening or has happened and is happening. So you can see there's some blue bubbles out there around the alewife area just north of Fresh Pond in West Cambridge.
And what does the blue bubbles mean again?
Those are largely housing developments along
see the codes down here, so I see.
So places that were actually permitted and built out in various portions out around alewife, which quite honestly, it was some of the development in alewife that really spurred a lot of the call for master plan in the first place.
Because that's already been developed, it looks like.
So there's not that much new being planned that I'm aware of.
Well, except that yellow, what's that, 14?
Yeah, so that's in construction.
Fawcett Street,
and then there's some red dots of things that are permitted that may come soon.
Right.
Right, but they're kind of just filling
Cambridge
out.
Park Drive has a lot of stuff,
Right. Basically what happened was a lot of housing development happened much faster than had originally been expected.
Yes.
But some people feel that's a good thing. Some people had reservations.
Actually, more housing than commercial. There's only two squares there for commercial. That's interesting.
But as is almost always the case, if you look over in the eastern part of the city, you'll see that the number of blue squares and such
is much bigger than commercial.
Much more significant there, down around East Cambridge.
Well, it's less of a, Kendall is not really where you want to live.
Yeah,
it's
and if you look at projects that are in the pipeline or permitted, you look at the big red one, there's a lot of red blotches over there in the eastern part of the city.
Thorndike Street. Oh, the courthouse.
That's the courthouse.
That's the courthouse.
At some point, that'll get resolved.
Wow, it's one of the biggest. And what's this? 33 is North Point Master Plan.
North Point is actually going to be the biggest of the big, I would say.
Now it has a circle within the square, which means it's both, right?
I think it's just in real proximity. Yeah, some have been.
I mean it's going to be residential and commercial, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah. It's fair to say that I mean, I have to kind of relook at some of these things there. But North Point is it's not all commercial. It's not all residential.
No,
There'll be actually some. I've heard people say we're going to have a supermarket down there. We'll see. It'd be nice if they actually built balanced communities that had all
but
things,
it probably really
Maybe
does
build a
cater
school.
to single professionals though that go into Boston or work in Kendall.
Yeah.
Unlike I think the other one, it's near Route 2, so you get a lot of people living in those residences that travel out 128.
To me, it's very hard for me to imagine things that are right along the Route 2 stretch west of the alewife Parkway. To me, that's like motel living.
No, no,
Right?
no. I don't know. I know I won't say who they are, but it's a very
Right.
prominent couple that lives in one of those places because it's near where
I like
they all work.
the one
And
that's
it's near
actually in
it's at the
Alewife
subway.
on the southern, it's just south of the
That's
little
what I meant,
river.
yeah.
Then it's actually kind of beautiful. It's very
You're
natural.
talking about the ones
setting.
behind.
North is that where the old bowling alley was, Lanes and Games, and the Faces nightclub.
Yeah, but you get to that
around
through
there.
Cambridge Park Drive. Where am I thinking?
No, actually,
you know
you
Summer
know.
Shack. You know where the Summer
Yeah.
Shack is. You know
Yeah.
where Alewife, the subway.
Yeah, well, that's
all
Cambridge
behind
Park
there are
Drive.
all these
And I'm
big
talking
buildings.
about I'm talking about the Route 2, which is actually north of the railroad
Yeah,
tracks.
but then
north
it's
of
harder to
everything.
get to the subway.
Yes.
And at
yeah.
Discovery Park and all
So
that.
that's not
yeah.
my favorite part of that. To
No.
me, that's like the motel strip. That should.
Oh, that, yeah.
They can build all the
But
housing
I
they
was
want.
amazed
They're
at
just
all the
glorified
high-rises
motels
there.
in my
Yeah.
mind. You know.
Anyway.
But, I mean, there are businesses there because it's sort of easy off the Route 2, and so it kind of works for people. who commute
But I
to
can
work
see
there.
why people live in Alewife, because the traffic around that rotary and coming into, is like a million people come in that way.
Yeah, actually,
Even
that's one thing which I'll be amazed if any resolution comes out of the
Yeah.
traffic nightmare that is
Yep.
Alewife area. Just getting across there is
People
really, really
won't get
hard.
out of their cars.
And I think honestly that actually, that coupled with the relatively rapid development that was happening out there is what got everybody worked up and wanting master plans.
No,
And,
makes sense.
personally, I like the fact that housing was being built generally out there. I think
Yeah.
it's sort of a good thing.
Yeah,
But the notion that Route 2, basically Route 2 comes into the Alewife Parkway
Mm-hmm.
and then turns into these little road network that are perpetually clogged for
Mm-hmm.
many hours during the day is a problem that resists solution. I don't know how that's going to get resolved, and I certainly don't think that an Envision Cambridge committee or the process is going to find all the answers for that, because it's a regional problem.
yeah. A lot of people come in to Boston and Cambridge via that route.
Yeah, and
the way it
a lot
is.
of it is passed through, and I think all
Oh,
the
absolutely,
traffic
yeah.
studies have shown that
Yeah.
a significant fraction of the traffic on Alewife
Mm-hmm.
Parkway is just people who are connecting from Route 2 to go into Boston and
Yeah. I
elsewhere.
don't know where they're parking down there, but they are coming in.
Yeah, they're still
Yeah.
coming in to some degree, right?
So we have
Anyway.
a few seconds, not minutes, right?
Yeah, so anyway, we'll talk about some
Yeah.
national things and other ones in a few
Inauguration.
minutes. So
Woo!
anyway, we'll
All
be
right.
back for the 200th episode of Cambridge Inside Out.
It is? Ooh,